Senor Hositu was there. Eliklim, are you coming to do a group presentation? Or you want to change the structure of the presentation for us? Put your hands together for them. Dr. Eliklim Afetogbo and Dr. KK Sapong to lead this presentation. So the chair and his presenter, good luck to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Bernard. Your Excellency, the Vice President, Honorable Ministers of State, distinguished guests. We were given the task of looking at structural reforms of two important sectors in our economy, cocoa and power. We decided to make our work easy by focusing on ECG and Cocobod. From the minister's presentation, it was obvious to us that he had two major concerns. First with ECG and then with Cocobod. He was concerned that the operations of ECG is a drain on the national budget, and that the government dishes out more than $1 billion a year to keep the organization going. Then also, the organization has got a legacy debt, which he's wondering what to do with it, and that if nothing is done, by 2027, there will be a total debt of about $9.5 billion. So we set out to find out, how do we make ECG self-sustaining and stop the annual government expenditure of $1 billion, which is dished out to them. One of the issues we identified was high cost of electricity purchases from the independent power producers. Please, can you go back to the slide? No, the independent power producers. Please. Please put that slide on. Well, we found out that the power purchase contracts came with high purchase costs. We're told that in some cases ECG was part of the negotiations, others they were not. But that cost is now with us. Our suggestion, our recommendation is that these power purchase agreements ought to be renegotiated. And we're told some serious work has already been done, and we think it should be taken to its logical conclusion, so that that cost, which in some cases constitute more than 80% of the power production cost, can be looked at. And then we take advantage of that. We also suggested that to bring the power purchase cost down, we should look at renewables. And when we talk about renewables, not just solar. We should look at wind, energy and others. Once they will be produced and connected to the grid, the energy mix will result in a lower average cost, which will reflect in the tariff. We also notice that the procurement of ECG is not competitive. And this is a point which was hammered home by many participants. And indeed, ECG management accepts that something ought to be done. Please follow the slides because it's confusing us. We also discovered that ECG has got so much operational inefficiencies. There's high technical and commercial losses. And what was very worrying is the fact that the electricity they put into the market, they only recover or are able to get 62% of the value. The question which arises is, where does the 38% go? And if we get a 38%, what impact will it make on tariff determination as well as managing the 1 billion that we throw away every year? We think that ECG must expand prepaid electricity usage. If it's possible, every consumer must be on prepaid. Just like in the telecom industry. If you don't buy the card or the bundle, you cannot get a service. And we think that if we have prepaid meters installed, then we should be able to collect substantial part of the revenue. If we can't get 100%, we get 90, 95%. That would be a long way towards recovery. We say UCG should fully roll out boundary metering to determine how much power is being generated in an area and compare that with sales from that area to confirm any illegal consumption or theft. ECG must improve customer service by responding promptly to customer and meter fault complaints to drive revenue collection and financial performance. Sometimes when you call them, they don't come. And you may go a whole night without electricity. If we get it, we use it, we pay the money back. For procurement, ECG must adopt and sustain efficient procurement priorities, should publicize their audited financial statements, and management should be held to remuneration linked to key performance indicators, KPIs. If we're able to do that, that improvement will help, and that will not translate into higher tariffs to consumers. How do we deal with the existing debt, which is estimated at $2.2 billion, in a way legacy debt? Even if we can stop the $1 billion being paid every year, we still have some debt which must be paid. And what do we do? There's a social expectation of ECG and NETCO by government to supply electricity affordably to lifetime consumers in low-income households. Obviously, a social policy has got a social cost. Somebody must pay for it. And we believe the vulnerable must be protected in one way or the other. And that means that if we have a fair estimation, then that should be a budget line in the budget, which then will cater for the subsidization. We know that ESLA was there. The question is it relevant? So far as we have legacy debt, we may see whether there's any room for ESLA to continue. But if we deal with the operational inefficiencies, as we try to be efficient, then maybe there won't be much to worry about. There's also some conflict between ECG and VRA as to who should do export, who should do what. I think this must be streamlined so that we can get optimal results. With regard to the legacy debts, we believe there should be a vehicle to raise funds to service the legacy debts, while ensuring all the necessary protocols are complied with. The options include create an opportunity to release ECG equity in fiscal assets to raise funds. A form of privatization, but it's something that we need to be thought through carefully. Then also, VRA has got some thermal assets that we believe VRA and BUI, if they have to run on hydro, then maybe these thermal assets can be put together and in one form or other raise money, either as a joint venture with another person or sell the assets completely, and that money which is realized can go towards the servicing of the legacy debts. We think we should deepen private sector participation in distribution. The PDS experience is there, but maybe other modes can be looked at. And we think there are various ways that some private sector involvement can be introduced. And wherever private sector is, we all know efficiencies come in and we get results. We think ECG, we need some reforms, governance reforms. It should operate as a commercial corporate entity. If it has to carry out the social work or social operate as a social or a service to the vulnerable, of course somebody has to pay for that. And we believe that if we introduce private sector participation, then the idea of driving it towards commercialization is likely to be achieved. And in that way, we prepare it eventually for stock market listing to raise money locally and internationally. I believe in democratic capitalism. Many people getting the chance to buy part of the asset. Yes, we will now turn to cocoa. The minister said, Cocobod operations result in substantial losses, about $2.4 billion annually, between 2017 and 2023. But when we analyze, we realize that whilst Cocobod revenue is decreasing, its costs are increasing. And possible root cause, Galamsey operators have taken over farmlands, and therefore acreage under production has reduced. So Galamsey itself leads to low productivity. But in addition to that, we haven't had a full-scale application of modern technology and agronomic practices. Our cocoa industry still is largely peasant-based. So something has to be done about productivity. Cocobod is also not focused on its core business, and has inefficient procurement practices, just like the ECG, the cousin. To government, we suggest as follows. We should have a holistic and coordinated plan to stop Galamsey and improve cocoa production and food production as well. This is a major issue for government to deal with. Within our group, for less than a day, we couldn't have come out with any plan, so we just recommend that to government. Cocobod should focus on its core business of buying and selling cocoa. In effect, it has no business doing roads. And we think that that must stop forthwith. The Department of Feeder Roads is there, and arrangements can be made for them to look at cocoa roads. In the past, when some of us were there, we were never constructing roads. We are only helping to give funds to feeder roads for them to do the work. Cocobod also imports inputs which we think should not stop, but whatever is imported should be sold at market prices. Because if you subsidize, as we have now, all of the inputs, a large number of it goes across the borders, smuggled out. So that is a cost to government for no benefit. And the only way to stop that is to let the prices match market. So there's no incentive for smuggling. To increase production, we want to recommend, whichever way government will look at it, to encourage large-scale plantations and also adoption of agronomic practices. We have to conduct procurement efficiently to ensure value for money. We also observed, and the minister mentioned, that Cocobod, through its forward sales and its inability to honor contracts agreed on, in the previous season have had to supply or honor those contracts now when the prices are high, to the extent that in the long run, about $1.3 billion in revenue will be lost. The possible root cause: excessive forward sales to support borrowing to finance crop purchases, non-core activities such as cocoa trade, cocoa roads, and forests to government. From my own experience there in Cocobod, only about 50% of the crop size was always involved in the forward sales for the syndicated or receivable back loans. We think something went wrong somewhere, and our investigations revealed that pressure was put on management to borrow more to support government forest requirements. So we recommend that Cocobod operations should be separated from monetary policy of government. How do we finance the crop then? Currently, some private processors are integrating to the field to buy the beans. So they provide pre-finance to farmers or to the buying companies. We think this should be encouraged. That then will leave a gap which must be financed. We are told the processors process about 30% of the crop. So let's assume that they finance 30% of the crop. It means 70% must be financed from somewhere. Domestic financing. Maybe the need for syndicated loans may not be necessary now, though it served us well for more than 30 years. And this one is left with the central bank and the commercial banks to see how best they can raise domestic CDs to help purchase cocoa. Finished. We have the view that there's weak governance for Cocobod, just like ECG, and obviously political interference in management and procurement. Just a minute. And then we don't give it commercial orientation. So we think we should review the governance structure of Cocobod so that it is professionally run, made accountable, and made transparent through public reporting. Thank you very much.
Please put your hands together one more time for the structural and policy reform